So thank you very much for joining us this evening, everyone. This is part of a series we've been running this summer, which is around induction sessions for new volunteers. With the other roles, we've done it for club secretaries, chairs, and welfare officers already, and those have been very much geared around new volunteers stepping into the role for the first time. But I'm conscious, I think as I put in the email to everyone, that treasurers are probably an audience that we perhaps haven't engaged with as much as we would like to have done. And therefore I felt it would be quite nice to throw this open to the whole community, to all the existing treasurers as well. So you've got an opportunity to actually pick our brains as much as anything, and yeah, share with each other's experiences, and we'll kind of go through what we see here at Berks and Bucks that role of a club treasurer looking like. As I said earlier, if you've got any questions, please feel free to pop them in the chat or use the raised hand function, and I'll kind of refer back to that after every couple of slides or every section and see if there's any questions. Or if you did want to unmute yourself, you're more than welcome to do so and shout out a question as we go. So I'd like to introduce myself first of all. My name's Alistair Kay. I'm the Football Services Manager here at Berks and Bucks. So the Football Services Department, we are responsible for the governance of the game. During the season, that will be going through the disciplinary and the safeguarding aspects, making sure that everybody's kind of playing the game in a fair and safe manner. But we're also responsible across the course of the summer for the annual affiliation process, and increasingly we're trying to focus on volunteer support and making sure that the huge community, huge number of volunteers we have that keep the game going, feel that they have the knowledge and understanding to be able to tackle the roles that they're taking on. So this feels very much part of that process, with looking specifically around the role of a club treasurer. I'm also joined this evening by Jeff Cardno, who, in addition to being the finance director here at Berks and Bucks, is also a club treasurer in his own right for Newport Pagnell Town, whose first team play in the Spartan South Midlands League at step 5 of the National Pyramid, but who also have 40 teams across all age groups. So Jeff's very kindly allowed himself to be roped into joining us. I've managed to twist his arm so that he can share some of his experience in the role and offer guidance, and I'll probably lean on him more to answer any questions you may have, because he's got the boots on the ground experience. So thanks again to Jeff for joining us. I'm hoping the session this evening will probably last around 40 to 45 minutes or so. I've kind of broken it into 3 sections, very much the same way I've tried to do if you've sat on any of the other induction sessions we've done over the last couple of weeks. First part, very much just looking around what that role is of a club treasurer. I've broken that really into 3 aspects. So budgeting, so season to season budgeting, day-to-day finances, and then any responsibilities around annual reporting. Then I'm going to just touch on some of the software and resources that the FA have put out to help clubs with managing their finances. So that will be the whole game system, which is very much the portal that we use for managing clubs and managing grassroots football. And then also touch on Match Day, which is a new feature that they've brought out, more geared around team management, but does actually also allow the function for you to receive electronic payments from your players. And then, as I said, we'll finish at the end with a bit of a Q&A, but please, by all means, feel free to ask questions as we go through. So first of all, in a nutshell, what is that role of a treasurer? So I'd see the role of the treasurer really as being, they're there to handle the day-to-day financial administration of the club and then ensure the financial integrity. So they should be the one that is responsible ultimately for making and receiving all payments on behalf of the club, keeping those financial records, making sure that every transaction is recorded and logged somewhere, but then also on an annual basis, making sure that the club is maintaining strong financial integrity through presentation of either audited or verified financial statements to club members at the AGM, and making sure that from a financial aspect, you are complying with any FA, government, charities, commission, companies house requirements that you may have to fulfill depending on the structure and the nature of your club. As we go through this, it's probably going to be much more based around the clubs at the lowest ends of the football pyramid, because those are the ones that probably need the most support, or it's very much more done on a volunteer basis. As you progress up the pyramid, the financial complexities increase as clubs become incorporated companies or registered charities, and that brings with it a much more complex set of financial regulations that you need to comply with. And we are looking to try and boost some of the support we offer with that through the FA's Club Matters programme. I'm probably not going to go into too much detail about that this evening. So as a start off, I wanted to just look at I apologise, it's probably teaching you to suck eggs, but very basic budgeting, just looking at how you may want to, as a brand new club volunteer, perhaps structure how you look at the financial health and income and expenditure for the club. Unfortunately, even at that most basic or the lowest level of grassroots football, it is still an expensive sport to participate in. As I say, when you get up to the higher echelons, there will be additional income and expenditures, but from a basic grassroots level, I'd say the starting point would be to establish your annual operating budget with what you know will be your fixed expenses for a coming season, and then look at what income streams you know you are guaranteed to have and how those can balance each other out. In terms of your fixed expenses, you've kind of got what I would call annual administration charges that you will probably have a good idea in around February to May of the previous season, what that will be for the coming year. So those are your affiliation fees to the county FA, entry fees for leagues and other competitions you may be entering, insurance fees for public liability and personal accidents, and then if your league has any player registration charges. Throughout the season, then you will have your match day expenses, so your pitch hire, your referee fees, and any refreshments you need for your players. May also include transportation in that, depending on how you structure kind of match day travel. And then you'll have either annual or ad hoc expenses based around the kit and equipment you may need throughout the year. From an income opportunities point of view, then, again, on your football-based income is going to be very much around annual membership dues and match day subscriptions. You may then also be able to have access to ad hoc sources of income such as sponsorship and grants. And then particularly in youth football, you may look to run summer tournaments, which, although they will bring with them additional expenses around facility hire, refreshments, perhaps even medals and trophies and so forth, will also bring in income as other clubs pay entry fees to you to be able to enter your tournament. And once you get a vague idea around what expenses you know you're going to have and how your income is structured, there's almost an opportunity to look and see how those may cancel each other out, so that you know that you're not going too far beyond your means. So you may look to say, right, our annual administration fees can be covered by the annual membership dues that we know we're going to get coming in. May then look at your expected match day fees and try and base your match day subscriptions for players on how much you then need to cover that on a week-to-week match basis. And then you may look at some of those more ad hoc sponsorship or grant income opportunities as a way of covering your kit and equipment throughout the season. Bear in mind as well that these kinds of fees around affiliation and entry fees and your pitch hire will be very much around on a team-by-team basis. One of the conversations we had when we did the presentation a couple of weeks ago for club chairman is around the conversations you need to be having within a club when you're looking at creating a new team. All too often, the creation of new teams is sometimes driven by ambitious coaches who see the opportunity to recruit new players and think that that can automatically translate into entering a new team into the league. What they may not then appreciate is that actually they may have, rather than have a squad of 18 players, they think that they can run 2 squads of 9, let's say. They've still got the same number of players, but suddenly they have doubled their entry fees into the competition. They've increased their their insurance and affiliation fees to the county FA. they may be increasing their pitch hire fees, their referee fees, refreshments, and so forth, and suddenly they need a new set of kit. And so without necessarily increasing the number of players and that membership dues and matchday subscriptions coming in, they're suddenly massively increasing the expenses that you're going to have to pay out for that new team. So really there needs to be a serious conversation when you do look to grow as a club and introduce new teams. And there should really be an approval process in place for the club that has to include both the chair for that overall responsibility of the club, but also the treasurer, who is aware of those financial constraints and that impact when you start adding new teams to your club. On a day-to-day basis then through the season, as I mentioned before, the treasurer is going to be responsible for those day-to-day invoice payments, the collection and accounting of discipline subscriptions, and then collection and accounting of player subscriptions, and then discipline, which is going to be the bulk of your day-to-day expenditure, certainly throughout the course of the season, and is one thing I'm going to come into in a little bit of detail in a second. It's important as you go through this on a day-to-day basis to make sure you are tracking all payments in and out of the club and maintaining effective records of all those transactions. Ideally, we encourage clubs to look to make sure they have a formal bank account they can use for this, but I do appreciate that that may not always be possible in practice, particularly at the lower levels of the game. What's crucial though is that if anybody within the club is incurring personal debts, so covering the referee fees or the affiliation costs or pitch hire from their own personal bank account, then they must make sure that those kinds of expenses are being tracked and being reimbursed promptly and transparently. So I would say that ideally the treasurer should probably not be the one that is incurring those costs themselves, on the basis that they would then be reimbursing themselves for it, and you may run the risk of you're opening yourself up for criticism, shall we say. It's not necessarily a case of people being concerned that there is some kind of conflict or mishandling of club accounts being done. However, just by having that separation between the individual that is incurring the debt and then reimbursing them, it just gives you that opportunity for a bit of check and challenge, and there's accountability and transparency across the club. And as the club treasurer, that means that you'll also be protecting yourself, as I said before. Before I get into the discipline side, I'm just going to click over to the other window and just see if there have been any questions that have come in. Will we cover the recommended legal setup of a club? I'm not going to go into that this evening. There is a fantastic presentation that the FA have put together under their Club Matters programme. So if there is something that clubs are interested in us offering, we will look to get that set up definitely over the next couple of months. We'll probably get somebody from the FA to come online to a meeting very much like this and present it. There's also opportunities to access workshops around that for or through Sport England, and they will run evening sessions again that probably last about 3 hours, but do go into those different legal structures for clubs. So I definitely recommend checking those out if you get the opportunity. Can you have two signatories for a bank account for payments to ensure it's not a single person making payments? I don't believe that works when it comes to backs transfers. However, there should be two signatories, certainly for any check payments you may be making, or there should be two people who are registered with the bank as having authority to make payments. Because again, you then have a second person that can have access to a bank account to be able to see who is making payments and so forth. I must admit, oh, Jeff, you're on. I can see your mouth moving, Jeff. You're on mute.
Sorry, that is a difficult one because most banks do require two signatories on a certain club bank account. When it comes to back transfers, it only needs one person to do it. So you need to have maybe something like that written in the constitution, which will allow two signatories, but one person to be able to do back transfers. But that's something the club itself needs to decide.
Could you have a system where there's like an electronic sign off from the chair, perhaps, that authorises the treasurer to process the payments? And that,
not that I'm aware of within the banking system. Whether you bring it into the business, that you have some sort of email trail that both people have to agree to it, maybe something along those lines might work.
Okay, brilliant. Thanks, Jeff. Okay, click back over to the presentation then. And I'm going to go into discipline. Reason I go into this is because it is something that probably falls out of the easy budgeting for a club that you may do on an annual basis, but is what one area that really does trip clubs up, particularly because it's something that involves players who may not agree with fines or may try and do a runner before they've had an opportunity to get it back from them. So I'm just going to look at some of the disciplinary fines that may get incurred, and just some advice around how the club may want to structure their disciplinary processes. So as I said before, it is a variable expense, so it's probably something I'd recommend keeping separate from what we call your operating budget, as it were. It should also be relatively net zero if it's done so that players are making payment as and when they receive fines. It's not something that you would budget for in advance. It's something that you account for as and when they occur. A recommendation would always be to pass on the fine to the individual player that has incurred it, who might committed the tackle, let's say, or committed the act of misconduct. However, you will still need to make sure that the fine does get paid in time, or you will face late fees and potentially then suspension if those late fees go unpaid. And I'll come on to how you may look to do that in a second. The other thing that you need to be conscious of is that each offence will contribute towards an overall tally for the other offences across the course of the season, which may mean that actually you want to run a separate internal fine tariff to the amount that you may be getting charged by the county FA. And I'll try and explain, hopefully in the next couple of slides, what I mean by that. The first thing to tell you, I apologise for this may be the first time you're hearing it, is that from next season onwards, a caution the fine for a caution has increased by £2. So what up until this point has been a £10 fee for a regular yellow card will now be £12 going forward. Now, the example I've used here is a £12 dissent caution that doesn't result in the player going to a sin bin. So this may be if a substitute commits an act of dissent whilst they're off the pitch, or it's an act of dissent committed, let's say, after the game, so it's not dealt with through the sin bin process. That single dissent caution, in addition to incurring an immediate £12 fine, will also contribute 2 points towards your that team's disciplinary total for the season. And if a team hits 75 disciplinary points across the course of the season, they will incur a misconduct charge and an additional fine, which generally is £75. It's at the discretion of the county FA, but we've generally tended to go with £75 for 75 points. The vast majority of adult men's teams will hit that because you'll pick up cautions across the course of the season. Every yellow card's worth 1 point up to 7 points for serious red card offences. So you're likely to hit that. So you need to be conscious that each offence is going to contribute towards potentially that fine later down the season. Additionally, clubs will receive automatic fines for hitting 6, 10, 15 or 20 respect offences, which are dissent cautions, red cards for abusive language or misconduct charges. And if 6 or more players in one match receive cautions or red cards, you will receive a multiplayer misconduct fine. So suddenly that single £12 dissent caution is contributing towards potentially multiple club charges or team fines that are going to be incurred throughout the course of the season. To try and put into perspective what some of those look like, for the respect ones, it's a warning for hitting 6 offences. As soon as you hit 10 offences, depending on what level of football you play, you're suddenly incurring some quite significant fines. If you hit 15 offences and you play at step 5 of the National League system, you're going to be incurring a £300 fine. So suddenly your £12 caution, you get 15 of those and you've got an additional £300 that need to get paid. Once you get up to stage 4 for 20 offences, it's a misconduct charge and it's at the discretion of the county FA disciplinary panel how much we issue for that. For those multiplayer misconduct fines, if 6 or more players get cautioned or sent off in a game, you're looking anywhere between a warning for a first instance outside the National League system, all the way up to £600 at step 5 and 6 if it happens for 4 times in a season. So therefore, like I said, that £12 fine isn't actually just going to be £12 that's going to cost the club. So you may look to run an internal fine tariff that perhaps accounts for some of those potential accumulation charges. For example, you might decide that if a player picks up a £12 caution, actually as a club, you're going to charge them £15. So you've got an extra £3 in reserve for that offence that can go towards some of those further misconduct fines. And the way I would personally sell it to the players, if I was doing that, is that if actually across the course of the season, the club as a whole are good with their discipline and they don't incur any of these additional fines, any excess can then be put behind the bar for an end of season party or celebration. So they know that although they may be having to pay a little bit more upfront, having committed the offence, if they rein it in for the rest of the season, actually they're going to come out quids in when they get to the end of the season. And again, hopefully, if you're just upfront with the players about how and why you're operating the system, they'll buy into it and they'll understand why you're doing it this way. The other reason it's important, as I said before, is that there can be serious impact if you don't pay some of these fines on time. So the club and the player are jointly responsible in adult football for making sure that disciplinary fines are paid in time. And that is within 14 days of the invoice being issued for it. Now, unfortunately, what does happen all too often is that the players that incur it keep promising mañana, I'll bring the money next week, I'll bring the money next week. Doesn't happen, gets to the end of the season, they decide to move to another club and actually they owe £100 to the club, let's say in unpaid subscriptions or disciplinary fines. Now, it's very strict about how you can kind of reclaim that through the county. So I'm going to offer some advice about how you may look to manage that internally to make sure you don't get to the point where they've done a runner and still owing you a lot of money. First of all, just to point out that if that invoice isn't paid within the 14 days, you will get a late fee, which is based on 25% of the unpaid amount. So for £12 caution, you're suddenly going to get a £4 fine. No, a £3 fine, sorry. An additional £3. So that caution is already now costing you 15. When you get to some of the more serious red card offences, particularly the higher levels of the game, and your £50 red card is now suddenly costing you £62.50. So, and if that then doesn't get paid, the club can get suspended. So it's important to stay on top of the fines and make sure they are paid promptly, because you don't want the rest of the players or the club as a whole to get suspended and incur additional fees. So the advice we would have around how you want to process to put in place internally is that if that player has promised you payment for the offence but hasn't paid it, and now the club's incurred that cost and you've had to pay it on their behalf, if they do keep promising it tomorrow and tomorrow never comes, look at suspending them internally until that payment is made. Now, that is a difficult conversation to have with your coach who may want to play them, but it will pay off in the long run because, like I said, you don't want to get to the end of the season and have that player owing you £100 or so. You also need to be doing formal demands for payment in writing, because that will help you if you want to then do debt recovery action later on. And that needs to be more than just a WhatsApp message or a Facebook message or a handwritten note or reminder given to him at the game. It needs to be a formal letter that goes to him on behalf of the club, reminding him or her that they've incurred this cost for whatever reason, and they need to make payment back to the club. Again, you may look to do internal late fees or penalties to the player, particularly if, as a club, you're now incurring late fees or penalties for non-payment. And then as the final result, you can look to take debt recovery action. Now, the football debt recovery process is put down to us from the FA, so it's something that we have to comply with the regulations and we can't go outside of this. But it is the only way that that will lead to a player being suspended across football and not being able to play for any other clubs that they may go on to sign for, while still owing you money as a club. As I said before, the club must make the payment first, because until the club makes the payment, you haven't actually incurred the debt. But you must make sure that you take action within the required timeframes. So those timeframes are quite tight. The debt has to have been incurred within the past 112 days, so 3.5 months. You must have formally demanded payment from that player in writing. And we have template letters you can use for this, but it must be a formal letter demanding payment from that player. And they have to have had 28 days to make payment and have kind of lapsed, or that 28 days has to have lapsed before it can be escalated to the county. And the minimum you can look to claim through the county FA under the debt recovery process is £25. If it meets all of that and we're able to take on that debt on your behalf, what then happens is that, unfortunately, there's another £25 administration fee that gets charged to the club initially, but then gets added to the debt that the player owes. So once the player pays us, you'll get that £25 back. We then formally notify the player and invoice them to say, this is the amount that's outstanding. This is what you owe us as the county for an administration fee, but also what you owe to the club, both for the initial debt and then that administration charge of £25. If the player then doesn't make payment to us within 21 days, they will be suspended from all football until repayment is made. And as soon as payment is made back to us, we will pass that back on to the club. We do have a guide to this on our website, and I really would encourage you to take a look, download the guide and have it handy. It is frustrating from our point of view that we aren't able to help clubs out more around this, because a request may have come in too late, or they haven't formally requested the payment from the club, from the player, to enable us to actually be able to take the debt on. So if you are able to kind of follow the process, we will be able to help you out with it. The other aspect then of sort of the day-to-day club role for a treasurer will revolve around annual reporting. So again, for larger clubs, this will probably be slightly more regulated, and you'll need to make sure you follow any legal responsibilities set by Charities Commission or Companies House. However, even at the lower end of grassroots football, when it is amateur clubs, we'd recommend that the accounts should still be verified on an annual basis, even if they're not formally audited, and presented to club members so that they are aware, your players are aware where their money's gone and the financial health of the club. And this will also help you out if you end up having to increase your subscription fees the following season, because you need to make sure you've got enough money to cover yourselves. From a county FA point of view, we do have the right to demand the profit and loss sheet or the balance sheet from the club on an annual basis. However, we don't enforce that unless there is a serious concern and we have reason to be concerned. You are welcome to upload it. It's an optional upload you can do as part of the annual affiliation process. And when they come in, we will take a look at them, just because it helps us gauge the financial health of grassroots football. But as I said, it's not a formal requirement at this stage. Before I pop onto the, I'm just going to have a quick look. Questions just come through. Can you confirm what you mean by the annual account should at least be verified? Jeff, do you want to take this one, and just the difference between audited and verified?
Yeah, so auditing is when you effectively get an accountant to look through virtually every line from your bank statements, from your income and expenditure, and audit every single entry that's made into the book. Whereas accounts being verified are where you supply the details to the accountant. He will verify the information that you've given him, but the accounts will basically be based on what you are supplying to the accountant. So even though the accountant's signing them off, it's based on information you provided to them.
Yeah, perfect. And I mean, one of the things we've said previously in other presentations we've done is to look within the club first to see if there's anyone that may actually have some of those qualifications or skills to be able to do the verification for the club pro bono basically, and a lot of accountancies, accounting firms will encourage their staff to do an amount of pro bono work for local organisations on an annual basis. So if you do have a player or a partner or a parent of a player within the club who may be able to help you out with that, definitely recommend exploring that. Right, moving on, I'm going to touch on where the FA have some systems in place to try to help you out with that, or with some of the financial management for the club. Now, I hope that everybody's familiar with the whole game system, but particularly for new volunteers coming on, appreciate that it's maybe something new for you. In a nutshell, again, the whole game system is the club management hub. It's a free piece of software. It's an online portal that is accessible for every single grassroots football club up and down the country, and it is where we rely on you to manage the club effectively. So it's through the whole game system that you will do the annual affiliation, provide us with safeguarding information about team officials, who's responsible for the club and individual teams. It's where you'll go online to manage the discipline and to receive the notifications of that. And it is also a hub where you will be able to go on and access invoices. What I'm going to do is try and show you that in reality, just so you can see what information is available on the whole game system. To do that, just going to have to bear with me for 1 second because I'm going to have to share a different screen. Let me see if I can now come on to. Oh no, every time I need to actually have it on the system. There we go. So you should now be able to see the initial kind of individual dashboard when you land on the whole game system. This is what, as a volunteer, you'll see when you first log in. And it's a landing page that shows you your personal profile. Now, included in this are tabs down the left where you can manage your own personal settings. So the invoice section here would be any personal invoices you may have received if you were a referee or you were an intermediary, so a player agent. That is not where you will see club invoices. I'll come on to that in a second. However, what you will see on this are notifications as and when, as a club, you receive invoices. So if I click onto this, I'll be able to see that Barks and Bucks office has received a new affiliation invoice today, which we set up just as a demonstration for this. Across the top here are the different clubs that you may be involved, clubs or leagues you're involved in, and you just navigate to the one you want to go to manage the finances for them. So Barks and Bucks office is a demo club that we've set up purely so I can kind of run these kinds of demonstrations. And I've set it up so hopefully this is the same view you will see, because the only role I have with the club is as a club treasurer at the moment. Again, it will tell you if you've got any unread notifications. On this main dashboard, you will see the kind of top level information about the club. So affiliation number for the current season, and your health check status, address and contact details and so forth. However, about halfway down, you'll see it will tell you the amount you have outstanding in the whole game system. And right at the bottom, it will show you outstanding invoices. Now, if you're just going on to make payment on an invoice, you may decide this is the quickest and easiest way to do it. Scroll down to the bottom of the dashboard, click on the invoice or the invoices you want to pay. It will show you a breakdown for them if you want, and then you can just click on the pay button and pay them in bulk. So you don't have to worry about going into individual disciplinary cases or individual invoices or line items. You can do it in bulk. Alternatively, if you do want a bit more information about what you paid over the course of the season, about halfway down on the left-hand side here, you will see the Finance tab. If you click onto that, it will give you a lot more of the historic information. So again, up at the top, it will show you current outstanding invoices, but it will also then show you any credit notes you may have on the system, which will be rare because they're rarely used at the moment. But you can then also see historic paid invoices. Just to look at the outstanding ones first of all, if you want information about what is on the invoice, you can see you just click on the invoice number and it will download a PDF automatically. If you open that up, that then shows you the full information about the line item breakdown of what is included in that invoice. So here you can see it's for public liability insurance and personal accident insurance as part of an affiliation. To go on and make payment, check the box by the side and click on pay. Now this will take you, I'm going to see if I can do it in a different tab. No. If you click on this, it will take you through to our online payment portal, where you just enter your bank details or credit card details, and it will automatically allocate that payment against the invoice. The other great thing on this is it doesn't involve any manual reconciliation from the county FA's point of view, which is great for Jeff and I, but it's also great for the club, because what it means is that let's say that you need to pay an invoice to complete your affiliation or to clear a disciplinary fine. That payment goes straight against the affiliation or straight against the case. And if there was a suspension associated with it, it would lift that suspension immediately. You're not requiring or not relying on any manual intervention from the county FA to either receive the payment, allocate it against a specific case, and lift that suspension manually. As I said, at the bottom, you'll then see historic paid invoices. And again, if you click on any of these, I'll go with this one because it actually had financial amounts on it. Oh. Okay, I won't do because it's now asking me to log back into something else. Effectively, it just shows you the same with the affiliation, the same invoice, but it will show you as a receipt and give you confirmation that that amount has been paid. So you can, again, download those for your accounting records, and going forward, you'll be able to provide that either for accountants if you're getting it fully audited, you'll be able to show them that transaction, or if there's any queries within the club, you'll have those available. You can see there's a question just around how to register for the whole game system. As soon as you are put into a role as a club treasurer, you will be linked to that club, and you will have access to the club through the whole game system. If you go to log into it for the very first time, your email, you should be able to create a new password automatically using your email address. So it's not a case of having to do a separate registration process. As long as you are listed as the treasurer for that club, you will be able to access it using your email address. If you do ever have any issues with that, though, please feel free to drop us an email here at County, and we'll either take you through that process or we'll check all of the membership records and confirm that you are set up correctly in the role for the club. Okay, hopefully we're back over onto these slides. And if I click through, just wanted to touch briefly on Match Day, which is a relatively new piece of kit that the FA have put together in partnership with PayPal over the last couple of years. Primarily, it's a team management platform for managers, so that on Match Day, they are able to automatically, well, they can basically pick their team using the app, and that will then send notifications to players that they've been picked for the team, and it will automatically feed that data into Full-Time, which is used by leagues for managing fixtures, results, and league statistics across the course of the season. However, it does also allow clubs to charge and receive payments, annual subscriptions or match-based subscriptions via PayPal. There is a, I'm not going to lie, there is a transaction fee involved with it. It's something like about 20 pence per transaction and a percentage of the total amount. However, what the FA have found is that by having it electronically, you're no longer relying on players turning up to the game with cash. I mean, I don't know about yourselves, but I very rarely carry cash around with me when I go out these days. I just rely on cards for everything. So actually what clubs are finding is they're receiving more payments because it's more convenient for the players. Now, the one limit on being able to use Match Day is that it's only currently available for teams in leagues who use Full-Time and register all of their players through the whole game system. Now, that is the majority of leagues in Berks and Bucks, but there are a couple of notable exceptions, including probably primarily the East Berks Football Alliance, which is our largest league, but choose to use a different platform. But if you are interested in it, again, we've got a whole section on our website that will give you some more information, and we can look to run a session just around how to use Match Day and how to get it set up. and we're looking to do that probably just ahead of the new season starting up, so August, September time. The other benefit of it is that there are also some incentives at the moment for clubs to adopt it, and that involves PayPal credits either for individual players for signing up and processing their first payment, for club individuals for getting the club onto the system, and then for the club as a whole for hitting various payment thresholds. So I think it's something like, as soon as you hit 11 different players making payment to the club through Matchday, there's something like £100 Matchday PayPal credit, which you can then use to buy equipment on behalf of the club. So like I said, I would definitely recommend looking into it and seeing if it may work for yourselves at the club, if you are eligible for it. And hopefully it will actually help you manage your financial systems. You will need to set yourself up as a vendor on PayPal, but you may have seen when I was in the whole game system on that finance tab, it's done through that section, and there are kind of walkthrough guides on every step of the process as to how to do that. Mentioned before, we're looking to do a lot more resources around this, and before I close up or throw it open to a general Q&A, I just wanted to highlight some of the support and resources we're offering. So as I said before, there's a wealth of resources we have on our website through the club management page in the league and club section. Included on there are one-page reference guides to various aspects of running a grassroots football club and various FA regulations, to try and take it out of the handbook and all of the legalese that's involved in that, and try and make it some practical advice for clubs. Included in that is all of the information around the debt recovery process. We also do regular CPD and information sessions for clubs generally, and we're looking to try and, as I said before, improve the amount that we're offering for treasurers or around kind of the financial structure of clubs. This induction process or series of induction webinars is part of a regular monthly series we call BBFA Support. Once a month, we'll do an online session very much like this, where we will look at a specific area of running a club, whether that is discipline, safeguarding requirements, handling internal complaints, how to do the affiliation or so forth, and look at them in a bit more detail, both in terms of the regulations behind them and then also practical demonstrations. So we're hoping to get a calendar of those out to clubs shortly. Definitely recommend jumping onto those if you can. And then we also do various other support workshops across the season, either at our offices in Abingdon, online like this, or across the county in partnership with specific leagues. So stay tuned for various ones of those as they come. Finally, hopefully we do, I'd like to hope that we offer prompt customer support throughout the year. We do have internal targets around getting back, trying to resolve customer queries within 2 working days, and try and make sure that we respond to those at least 90% of those queries within 2 days of them hitting our inbox. So depending on what the issue is, we will prioritise it, obviously, if they are more pressing. So that kind of covers the information I wanted to get out there and trying to share with yourselves this evening. I'm going to throw it open to a general Q&A. You're welcome to do that as raising the hand, popping something in the chat, or unmuting yourself, and between Jeff and myself, hopefully we'll be able to help that. If not, if you haven't got any questions or you wanted to head off, thank you very much for joining us this evening. I do hope you found it useful, and like I said, stay tuned and we'll look to run some more of these hopefully in the future and tackle perhaps some of those bigger questions around legal structures or some of the more nitty-gritty technical side of financial regulations. Right, I'm going to pop into the questions. Can you use this for friendlies? I'm assuming that was around match day, was that, Russ? I don't believe you can use it for friendlies at the moment in terms of the team management side, but you can definitely use match day for your either annual or match-based fees. So you can effectively generate one-off invoices to players. So if you are charging them a subscription fee for playing in a friendly, you should be able to use it for that.
Okay, thanks. I mean, I use Spond at the moment for sort of getting availability. But Spond's weakness is you can't confirm the squad you want.
Okay.
It's a match day, but again, half my games are sort of things. I really want one system that I can just. I'm not so worried about the payment side, just manage the team.
On the team management side, yeah, I don't think you can do it for the. I'll tell you what, I'll look into that one for you and see if I can come back to you on it. Just because
I can probably. They're all in whole game system. All my players are in whole game system.
Yeah. My concern around the friendlies is where it pulls the fixture details from. So I just want to see whether it's possible for the club to create a one-off fixture that you're appointing or that you're picking a player for, versus the fixture details it pulls through for league fixtures from full time. Okay. So that's just where I think kind of need to clarify on that one. Question from Vicky around match day. Apart from the cost, how many PayPal accounts will we need, and will it become mandatory? I think you just need one PayPal account as effectively as a small business or a vendor, which then is able to receive all of the player payments into the club. Each of the players will need their own PayPal account as well, then, in order to be able to make the payments. However, I would imagine the vast majority of them probably already do. And if not, it doesn't take too long just to kind of sync that up. But I know, considering how many online platforms use PayPal as a payment option, a lot of people will already have it. I do not believe that there's any expectation that match day would become mandatory anytime soon. It is there as an optional tool. And is that linked to the bank account for managers to pay referees? I would love it if referees agreed to get paid by PayPal. Unfortunately, the vast majority of referees do still want cash in hand at the end of a game or before or after the game. So I guess that is going to be the one downside to it, that if you're receiving electronic payments from players, you will probably need to rely on your manager making sure that he or she has the cash to be able to pay the referee, because you're less likely to get money come in from the players in one hand to then be able to pass it to the referee with the other hand, as it were. I can see Robin's got a hand up as well. If you want to unmute yourself, Robin.
Yes, Robin Newell, Abingdon United Football Club. We run a quite thriving social club, and we combine the accounts for both the social club and the football side of matters together into one set of accounts. From what you've said previously about the audited accounts, is it acceptable to present those combined accounts to the FA for whatever reason they might want to look at them? I haven't encountered any previous problems with this, but I'm now taking over treasurer for the first time, and I'd like to know what we need to do going forward.
Do you want me to take that, Alistair?
Yeah, that's fine with me.
Hi, Robin. Yeah, so Newport Pagnell, we do exactly the same. We have a football bank account that's run by the football side of the business, and we have the social club bank account. So they run independently in terms of day-to-day finances, but they're accounted for as one in the end of the year, and that's not a problem with the FA in any way, shape, or form. They're more than happy with that, to run it as one limited company, but with as many bank accounts as you want.
Okay, well, we do also combine the bank account into the football operations as well, but the accounts, the income and expenditure for the football side are shown separately in the annual accounts.
Yeah, that's absolutely fine. It really isn't a problem at all.
Okay, thanks, Jeff.
Okay. Cheers, Jeff. Yeah, that was outside of probably my knowledge, so thank you. Were there any other? Oh, there's something else in the chat unless that's someone that has left. How are we going to change the FA guidelines around paying referees electronically? A very good question. I mean, as a county, we make sure that all of our county cup referees are now paid electronically, because we felt that was better from an auditing point of view. Certainly in the grassroots level, it is down in the standard code of rules which governs league fixtures and how leagues are generated. The payment is made before or after the game to the referee in person in the changing room. So there would need to be a change to the standard code of rules to be able to make that go electronic. See, there's a follow-up point from Vicky is saying as of the weekend's announcement, which may well mean that there's something in the weekend's announcements that I haven't had the chance to read yet. And I'm guessing that may involve a suggestion to try and avoid handling cash.
Yeah, that's it, basically, yeah.
Yeah. We will come back to you on that. I'm going to be perfectly honest, Vicky. Today has been so insane in terms of queries that have come in. I haven't actually had a chance to really read all of the FA guidance in depth. So we will try and find an answer for you on that one and get back to you. We are looking to also run a clinic for clubs in the next couple of weeks, just around the obviously the impact of the new FA guidelines and practical advice for clubs as we look to start the new season. So we'll look to tackle it in that. But yeah, I will try and find that out and come back to you as soon as I can. See, there's a question from Kim about how would a club qualify to become a charity. I'm going to have to defer that one on the basis I don't think I'm legally allowed to give too much information on that one. If you are, my best advice on that, Kim, is if you are part of a charter standard club, you will have access to free legal advice from the FA's legal partners, who are called Muckle. And they have a wealth of experience and knowledge, and they will be able to kind of guide you through the application and process to become a registered charity. We're not able to kind of guide you through that because it becomes legal advice. There is a document I can send you though, which it just kind of looks at is a basic introduction to the different legal structures. So I will email that to you, Kim. But beyond that, in terms of formal advice and guidance through that process, you would need to probably seek formal legal advice. I don't have Muckle's number, but off the top of my head, but I will send that to you as well, Vicky. So I'm just going to try and make some notes around what I need to be sending to who. I think I can access the chat again afterwards. If it sounds like there's a fair amount of interest just around some of these kind of taking clubs to that next step, shall we say, and either whether that is incorporated companies, CASC, community associated sports clubs, and registered charities. What we can look to do, if there is interest in this, is we can look to organise one of those Club Matters workshops with the FA. I think we can have about 12 people on them. So if there is interest, I'll drop you guys all an email as well. And if we can build up some interest in that, we can get something sorted soon. That's brilliant. I'll get something sent out then over the next couple of days. We'll see if we can get something in. Question then around what personal liability do club committee members have for...
You mostly cover that under what you're looking to do, to be fair, Alistair.
Yeah.
But Rod, it does really depend how the business is set up. If you're set up as an unincorporated association, where all the committee members are individually liable, there is potentially liability to you as chairman if you're not an incorporated business. I can tell you that's a fact. That's not advice. That is a fact. So
it's the part of grassroots football that probably scares me the most, or gives me the most concern for volunteers, is particularly like you say, when it's unincorporated organisations, that if you are an individual looking to purchase equipment and the club folds and you don't get the money come through from the club that you were relying on, you will still have entered into that commitment individually, and you would be personally responsible for still paying the vendor for it. So it is key to make sure that you have the right kind of structure in place to make sure that from an individual point of view, you're not putting yourself at risk that you're suddenly going to incur costs.
the two main ones to look at are limited by guarantee and as a charity. They're the two that are would be the main ways to go.
Yeah, and certainly if you ever get to the stage that you are paying money to quote volunteers, but you are paying money to individuals in order for them to fulfill a service to you, whether that is for coaching or a stipend or honorarium for fulfilling roles as even yourselves as treasurers or let's say fixture secretaries and so forth, you would really recommend you look at those legal structures as well, because again, suddenly you're not just becoming an amateur sports organisation, you're becoming an employer as well. So it's important again to make sure you have the correct structures in place. But it sounds like we definitely do need to. There is definitely interest there around those legal structures. So what I will do is reach out to the FA tomorrow and see if we can start that ball rolling and try and offer up some dates around that. I'll also take a look, because I know that there are some recordings the FA have made available both around financial planning and financial structures and around the club organisational structures. And if those are accessible on YouTube or freely available on the FA website, I'll try and get that information sent out to yourselves as well. Perfect. I can't see any more questions coming up in the chat, and I'm conscious that the clock is hitting 8 o'clock. So thank you very much for joining, everyone. I hope you found it useful, and I think certainly from the level of engagement and questions, I'm hoping it has been as useful as we intended. Like I said, we will look to try and offer more support, and it seems there is certainly an appetite for it. So stay tuned, and we will keep in touch. With that, thank you very much all. I hope you have a good evening.